All right, so get this, everybody. Today we're diving deep into Neanderthal territory.
Ooh, Neanderthal.
Yeah, like those not-so-distant relatives hanging out with our ancestors way back when.
Right.
We always hear about humans having a bit of Neanderthal DNA, mixed in our genes.
Mm-hmm.
But get this. New research is like totally flipping the script on what we thought we knew about this whole intermingling thing.
It really is. It's fascinating stuff.
So spill the tea. What's got everyone buzzing?
Well, you see, for ages, we had this picture in our minds, like a quick one-time hookup between Neanderthals and Homo sapiens.
Right. Like a quick fling.
Exactly. But hold on tight, because the latest findings from all this fancy ancient DNA analysis are showing us a much more layered, complex story.
Okay, so not just a fling, more like, what, friends with benefits.
Think way more long-term. It wasn't just a fling. It was a relationship that stretched over millennia.
Millennia. Whoa, now we're talking serious commitment. Like, how long are we really talking here?
The research is pointing to an insane period, like about 7,000 years.
7,000 years.
Yeah, and it all started roughly 50,500 years ago. Think about it. 7,000 years, that's longer than all of recorded history, like everything we've ever written down.
Okay, yeah, my mind is officially blown. That's like totally rewriting the whole quick encounter image we had of Neanderthal interbreeding. I mean, 7,000 years, that's enough time for entire civilizations to rise and fall.
Right.
But hold on, how do scientists even figure out such a precise timeline from DNA that's, super, super old?
It's amazing what science can pull off these days.
Seriously.
Researchers have been comparing the genomes of modern humans with 58 ancient Homo sapiens samples. They've got these samples from Europe and Asia.
Wow.
And by analyzing, like really digging into the DNA from these old bones, they managed to create a super detailed timeline of, all that genetic mixing and mingling.
So it's like scientists are straight up time travelers with DNA. They're pulling these secrets from ancient bones, just tiny fragments, and learning so much about our ancestors. Unbelievable. But, okay, this whole long-term thing between Neanderthals and Homo sapiens, it raises some big questions. Didn't they live in totally different parts of the world? How did this whole interbreeding thing happen over such a huge stretch of time and space?
That's a really good question, and it goes right to the heart of how those early humans migrated and how they interacted. Here's a fun fact. East Asians actually have about 20% more Neanderthal DNA than Europeans do.
Wait, seriously, so, like, different groups have different amounts of Neanderthal DNA.
Exactly. It's super interesting. What we're seeing is that those early Homo sapiens groups, the ones heading east, they might have picked up some Neanderthal genes before they took off on their journey. Picture them interbreeding in Eurasia, then carrying those mixed genes as they traveled further and further east.
Whoa, okay, so it's not just about the time, it's about where all this mixing was happening. That's what influenced how Neanderthal genes spread out across different human groups. It's like less of a one-night stand and more of a, like a massive continent-spanning time-traveling dance party.
Haha, that's a fantastic way to put it. Think of it like weaving a giant genetic tapestry over thousands of years with different threads representing all the migrations and mixing.
Love that analogy. A genetic tapestry. Okay, we're getting somewhere with this. Okay, so a genetic tapestry woven over thousands of years. That's a pretty wild image. But here's where my brain starts to, like, short circuit. Were all these Neanderthal genes actually good for our ancestors? Like mixing genes from different species. Doesn't all sound like a recipe for success, right?
You've got a point there, and it's not always a happy ending. Researchers have stumbled upon these things they're calling Neanderthal deserts.
Neanderthal desert.
Yeah, they're these areas in the human genome, get this, completely empty of Neanderthal genes.
Whoa, Neanderthal deserts. That sounds kind of ominous.
Right.
Like, what are they exactly? Are they like spots in our genes where Neanderthal DNA just couldn't hang on, couldn't survive?
Yeah, that's a pretty good way to picture it. Think of them as no-go zones where certain Neanderthal genes just weren't vibing with the whole Homo sapiens setup. Some genes just weren't compatible. And these incompatible genes, well, they were probably troublemakers, maybe even like fatal in some situations.
So not all Neanderthal genes were the life of the party, huh? Some were like total party fouls for our ancestors.
Exactly. And the crazy thing is, these deserts, they seem to have popped up pretty quick after the whole interbreeding thing started. Like, bam! No Neanderthal genes allowed here. It's just some serious genetic clashes were going on. Certain combinations just didn't work. And that's why we see these gaps in our genetic inheritance.
Wow. It was like a genetic gamble back then? Some genes were winners, others not so much. But those winners, the beneficial genes that stuck around for tens of thousands of years. They must have given our ancestors a serious edge, right? Otherwise, they wouldn't have lasted.
Absolutely. A lot of those Neanderthal genes turned out to be pretty handy, especially for stuff like immune function, fighting off diseases and all that. And skin pigmentation, too, adapting to those harsh Eurasian climates.
Right.
Remember, Neanderthals had already spent ages getting used to those environments, so their genes were like a cheat code for Homo sapiens fresh out of Africa.
Like they downloaded an upgrade pack for survival.
Mm.
Pretty sweet deal. No need to start from scratch. You just inherit the tools you need. Boom. That's incredible.
It really is. And what's even more wild is that we can still see the impact of these genes today. Like, recent research shows there's this specific Neanderthal gene variant. Get this, it actually protects against the virus that causes COVID-19.
Wait, are you serious? Like, our Neanderthal heritage is helping us fight a modern pandemic.
Yeah. It's mind-blowing. It's a perfect example of how those ancient genes are still influencing us today in ways we never expected. And there's more. And Neanderthal genes also play a role in, things like skin and hair color.
Oh, does that mean redheads got their fiery locks from Neanderthals? Because that would be legendary.
Well, it's not quite that simple, but Neanderthal genes are definitely part of the mix. They contribute to the diversity of human pigmentation, including red hair.
Okay, it's still pretty cool. It's like we owe a big thank you to our Neanderthal peasants. They weren't just some evolutionary dead end. They helped shape who we are today.
No doubt about it. The more we learn, the more fascinating their story becomes.
Okay, so we've got these Neanderthal deserts, the good genes, the bad genes. But how did all this inheritance stuff actually work? Like, how did these genes jump from one species to another over and over for generations? I'm picturing like two rivers merging.
Yeah.
But it's got to be more complicated than that, right?
Yeah, good question. You're kind of on the right track with the river analogy. Imagine these rivers, they're carrying unique sets of genes. And when they merge, they create a new stream, all blended together. That's sort of how gene flow works between different species.
Okay, so each generation got this mixed bag of genes, slowly adding more Neanderthal DNA to the Homo sapiens pool. Makes sense. But wouldn't that eventually lead to everyone having the same amount of Neanderthal DNA? Like, after 7,000 years, wouldn't things even out?
That's where things get extra interesting. Remember those Homo sapiens groups heading east?
Yeah, the big trek.
Well, some of those groups had already hooked up with Neanderthals, right? So they were carrying a bigger chunk of Neanderthal genes, while other groups, maybe not so much intermixing.
So you've got these different groups on the move, each with their own level of Neanderthal heritage, spreading out across the world. That's why some populations have more Neanderthal DNA than others.
Bingo. Imagine that blended river we talked about, splitting off into all these streams, each one flowing in a different direction, carrying a slightly different mix of those original genes.
That's a fantastic image. It shows how even small things, like which route a group takes, can have a huge impact on the genetics of entire populations down the line.
For sure. And this genetic legacy, shaped by thousands of years of mixing and migrating, it's what makes us, us.
This is all so mind-blowing. It makes you wonder what other secrets are hidden away in our genes, just waiting for us to find them.
That's the beauty of science. There's always something new around the corner. And the more we dig into the past, the more we understand about ourselves and our place in the grand scheme of things.
Well said. And speaking of digging deeper, we've only scratched the surface of our Neanderthal story. Stick around for the final part of our deep dive, where we'll get into the cutting-edge research that's pushing the boundaries of what we know about our prehistoric past. Welcome back, everyone, to our Neanderthal deep dive.
Yeah.
We've been on quite the adventure, haven't we? Prehistoric romances, genetic deserts, rivers of genes.
Yeah.
We've dug up some seriously fascinating stuff about our Neanderthal heritage. But, like always, there's got to be more to the story, right?
Absolutely. This whole field of ancient DNA research is just exploding with new discoveries, and the tech is getting better all the time. It's like we're getting a clearer and clearer view of the past, going deeper than ever before.
It's like a time machine, but for DNA.
Mm.
So what are the big hot spots in Neanderthal research right now? What are scientists super focused on?
One area that's really heating up is all about Neanderthal behavior and their brains, like how they thought.
Oh, cool.
For a long time, people pictured Neanderthals as these, kind of dumb, brutish cavemen. But new findings, they're changing the whole picture.
Yeah, I love it when science busts those old myths. So what's the evidence? What's pointing to a more sophisticated Neanderthal.
Well, check this out. We now know they were creating cave art.
No way.
Yeah, which means they were capable of symbolic thinking, like expressing abstract ideas.
Right.
Plus, they buried their dead, often with like ritualistic objects. That hints at a belief in something bigger than themselves, something beyond this life.
That is deep. It really makes you think. It suggests a whole level of, like, emotional intelligence and depth that we didn't give them credit for before.
Yeah, exactly. And there's more. They used some pretty sophisticated tools, hunted big game together, and even cared for their sick and injured. It's becoming clearer and clearer that these guys were highly adaptable, intelligent beings. They had complex social lives, problem-solving skills, the whole package.
It's amazing to think that our ancestors were sharing the planet with another intelligent species. I mean, what would it have been like to run into a Neanderthal face to face?
Right. That's the million-dollar question. And it takes us to another exciting area of research, figuring out the dynamics between Neanderthals and Homo sapiens.
Okay.
We talked about interbreeding, right? But what about their day-to-day? Did they get along? Did they fight? Did they trade? Did they share knowledge?
Yeah, all those things. It's like trying to solve a puzzle with only a few pieces. We've got these clues, and we're trying to understand how these two species live side by side. So what have scientists figured out so far?
It's still a bit of a mystery, honestly, but we're getting some cool clues. For example, in some archaeological sites, you find Neanderthal tools and Homo sapiens tools right next to each other. That suggests some kind of interaction, maybe even collaboration.
Whoa, that's wild. Imagine them working together, building stuff, maybe hunting together.
Totally. Some researchers even think that Homo sapiens might have picked up some key survival skills from Neanderthals, like how to hunt certain animals, how to navigate tricky landscapes.
It's like a prehistoric mentorship program with Homo sapiens as the apprentices, learning from the Neanderthal masters.
That's a great way to put it. But, okay, let's be real. It wasn't all sunshine and rainbows between these two. There's also evidence of competition, fighting over resources, maybe even some straight-up conflict.
Right, back then, surviving was no joke. It was a constant battle for food, territory, dominance. But it's amazing to think that through all that, these two species managed to live alongside each other, interbreed, even exchange knowledge for thousands of years. That's a crazy story.
It is, and the story is still being written as we make more discoveries. Who knows what secrets we'll find hidden in that ancient DNA next? Maybe we'll see even more complex interactions or find totally new human lineages we never even knew existed.
The possibilities are endless.
Yeah.
It feels like we're just at the beginning of rewriting human history. And that's what's so exciting about this stuff. It reminds us that there's always more to learn, always more to uncover about ourselves and where we fit in the grand scheme of things.
Couldn't say it better myself. This journey of discovery, it never really ends. And who knows, maybe the next big breakthrough will come from someone listening to this deep dive right now.
Yeah.
So if you're hooked on the ancient world, the mysteries of human evolution, the stories written in our DNA, keep digging, keep asking questions, keep diving deep.
That's the perfect way to wrap up our Neanderthal deep dive. We've covered a ton of ground, but really, it's just a peek into the massive world of Neanderthal research. There's so much left to explore, so much more to discover, and who knows, maybe one of you listening will be the one to make that next groundbreaking find. So if this deep dive has sparked your curiosity, keep learning, keep digging, keep sharing your thoughts and questions. And hey, don't forget to subscribe to The Deep Dive for more mind-blowing adventures into the world of knowledge. We'll catch you on the next one.